Victor Lawrence was a 63-year-old, retired electrician who lived in the small town of Redwater, Missouri. He had been married to Gloria for over 30 years. At first, their marriage was filled with laughter, love, and travel. But with time, things began to change. Gloria, who had once been warm and cheerful, became quiet and suspicious. Victor, who used to enjoy working in his garage and fixing old radios, now spent more time drinking beer on the porch and complaining about the world. They rarely spoke to each other anymore. Gloria often stayed in her room, watching old movies and knitting. Victor blamed her for everything wrong in his life. He believed she had grown cold, bitter, and too controlling. But what truly pushed him over the edge was the money. Gloria had received a big inheritance from her sister, over $250,000. She had kept the money in a joint account but made it clear that Victor was not allowed to touch it. "It's for emergencies," she would say, "not for beer and gambling." Victor was furious. In his eyes, that money belonged to both of them. After all, hadn't he worked hard all his life? Hadn't he stayed loyal through the years, even when he wanted to walk out? The more he thought about it, the more he grew bitter. One evening, after an argument about paying for a roof repair, Victor made up his mind. If she was out of the way, the money would be his. He had no children, no close friends, and no one to question her disappearance. He began to plan it. It had to be simple. No blood, no weapons, no mess. Just gone. One evening, while Gloria was sleeping on her recliner in the living room, Victor brought in a large cardboard wardrobe box he had saved from their last move. He had reinforced it with tape and wooden planks inside. Quietly, he lifted her frail body into the box. She stirred and mumbled, but didn't fully wake. Victor quickly closed the lid, taped it tightly, and loaded it into his truck. He drove to an old piece of land he owned about an hour outside town. It was a forgotten spot, full of weeds, near an abandoned barn. The moon was full, and the air was still. He dug a shallow grave in the hard dirt, lowered the box in, and covered it with soil and loose rocks. He stood over the spot, breathing hard, sweat soaking through his shirt. He whispered, "Goodbye, Gloria," and walked away, never looking back. Back home, he cleaned everything. He burned her clothes. He told the neighbors Gloria had gone to stay with her cousin in Illinois. "Needed a break," he said with a shrug. No one questioned it. 2 weeks passed. Victor opened a new bank account. He began withdrawing the inheritance bit by bit. He even bought himself a new recliner and a flat-screen TV. He felt free. He felt clever. He believed he had done it, gotten away with murder. But on a rainy Thursday evening, just after he finished dinner, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't loud. It was slow. Hollow. Knock, knock, knock. Victor froze. His heart began to race. He stood up and stared at the door. The knocking came again. Knock, knock, knock. Then a voice. Soft, muffled, and impossible. "Victor, it's me, Gloria." Victor stared at the door, his hands trembling. He felt cold all over, like ice was running through his veins. The voice he had heard was soft, almost a whisper, but he knew it. He couldn't mistake it. It was Gloria's. But that was impossible. Gloria was dead. Buried. Gone. Knock, knock. Knock. The sound came again, and this time, the doorknob rattled gently. Victor slowly backed away from the door, heart pounding. "No, no, this can't be happening," he whispered to himself. He felt dizzy. Sweat rolled down his forehead. Maybe he was hearing things. Maybe the beer was messing with his mind. He hadn't slept well in days. He forced himself to take a step closer to the door. The hallway light flickered above him, casting long shadows. He reached for the doorknob with a shaking hand, but stopped short. "Who's there?" he croaked. There was a long silence. Then came the voice again, calm, but chilling. "Victor, I'm cold. Let me in." Victor jumped back. His legs gave out, and he fell onto the floor. His breath came in short gasps. "Go away," he shouted, but there was no answer. Just silence. The knocking had stopped. He crawled to the window and peeked through the blinds. The porch was empty. The street was dark. Rain fell in sheets, tapping against the glass. No one was there. Victor stayed on the floor for several minutes, trying to calm himself. Eventually, he stood up and opened the door slowly, expecting, he didn't know what. A ghost? A neighbor? A prank? But there was nothing. No person. No footprints in the mud. Just an old, wet cardboard box sitting on the porch. Victor's heart nearly stopped. It was the same kind of box he had buried her in. He reached out and touched it. Cold, wet, but empty. He dragged it inside, staring at it like it was a monster. What was happening? Was someone messing with him? Had someone followed him the night he buried her? Was this revenge? He locked the door and pushed a chair in front of it. He went into the kitchen and poured himself a drink, his hands still shaking. He sat on the edge of his bed, unable to sleep. The next morning, Victor went to the burial site. He drove fast, glancing in the rearview mirror often, his eyes sunken and red. When he got there, his worst fear came true. The grave had been dug up. The cardboard was torn and pulled halfway out of the dirt. There were scratch marks on the inside of the box. Deep, ragged grooves, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. Victor stared, stunned. His knees buckled, and he vomited in the weeds. Impossible, he muttered. He staggered back to his truck, looking over his shoulder the whole way. He didn't know what to think anymore. Was Gloria alive when he buried her? Had she escaped? Was someone playing games with him? Or was it something far worse? That night, back at home, Victor turned on every light in the house. He didn't eat. He didn't sit. He just paced. Then, just after midnight, came the sound again. Knock, knock, knock. Victor didn't open the door this time. He stood completely still, listening, holding his breath. The knock came again, 3 times, slow and steady. Then silence. His heart thudded in his chest. He stepped back and looked through the peephole. The porch was empty again. No one. Nothing. But the knocks had been real. He wasn't imagining it. They weren't dreams or drunken thoughts. Someone, something, was knocking at his door in the middle of the night. And it had Gloria's voice. He stayed awake until morning, too afraid to sleep. When the sun finally came up, Victor made a decision. He needed answers. If Gloria was alive, then someone had helped her out. If she was dead, then this was some cruel game someone was playing. He couldn't go to the police. No, they would ask too many questions. They'd dig into the money, into her disappearance, into everything. He had to figure it out himself. He drove back to the burial site, again. This time he came with a shovel and gloves. When he reached the grave, he noticed more changes. The dirt had been scattered, not like from an animal, but by hands, human hands. Footprints surrounded the area. Some small, some large, some barefoot. He swallowed hard and began digging, his mind racing. As he removed more dirt, he saw that the cardboard box had collapsed in on itself. Its top fully torn open. The sides had deep claw marks. The inside was dark, but he could see strands of Gloria's hair caught on the tape, and blood, a lot of it, but no body. She was gone. Victor fell back on the ground, covered in sweat and soil. This wasn't just a prank. Someone had opened the box. Someone had taken her. Or she had gotten out on her own. Maybe she wasn't dead, he muttered. Maybe I buried her alive. The thought made his stomach turn. When he had placed her in the box, she had barely stirred. He thought she was drugged from her sleeping pills. He thought she would never wake. But maybe she did. And if she had clawed her way out and walked for help, why hadn't anyone seen her? Why hadn't the police come for him? Why was no one asking questions? He remembered something else. Gloria had been into strange things. In her last few years, she had grown obsessed with books about coming back, about life after death, about controlling the soul. He always laughed at her when she read them, called them stupid. Now he wasn't laughing. He grabbed the broken box and burned it behind the barn, watching it turn to black. Ash. He didn't care about the smell. He just wanted it gone. But as he stared into the fire, something caught his eye. On the nearby tree, scratched into the bark with what looked like fingernails, was a single word. Liar. Victor dropped the matchbox. He drove home like a man possessed. Every noise, every gust of wind made him flinch. He boarded up the windows. He unplugged the phone. He didn't sleep for 2 days. Then, the third night after digging up the grave, he heard more than a knock. This time it was footsteps. Inside the house, Victor stood in the middle of his living room, frozen. The lights were all on, but suddenly they felt dim. The air felt colder too, heavier, as if the walls were closing in. He had definitely heard it this time. Footsteps. Not from outside. Not from the porch. But inside the house. Slow. Careful. Deliberate. Creak. 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 Victor's breathing grew shallow. He reached into the drawer by the TV and pulled out a rusty old hammer he used to keep around for repairs. His hands shook as he gripped it. He turned toward the hallway that led to the bedrooms. It was dark. even though he knew he had left every light on. He tiptoed forward, each step louder in his ears than the last. The hammer felt heavy in his grip. The hallway stretched longer than usual, like a tunnel. He swallowed hard. Creak. Another step. The sound was coming from the end of the hall. Gloria's old sewing room. He reached the door. It was closed. But Victor never closed that door. Never. He raised the hammer, reached for the handle with his free hand, and slowly turned it. The door creaked open. The room was empty. But something was wrong. Her old chair was rocking gently, as if someone had just stood up from it. Her knitting bag sat open beside it. On the table was her unfinished scarf, the one she had been working on the day he buried her. And on the wall, carved in jagged letters with something sharp, were the words, "I woke up." Victor staggered back, the hammer falling from his hand. He slammed the door shut and ran back down the hallway like a frightened child. He grabbed his coat and keys and bolted out of the house, not even locking the door behind him. He drove to a motel on the edge of town, shaking the whole way. He booked a room under a fake name. He sat in bed, the curtains closed, the TV on mute. He didn't sleep. He didn't even blink much. Every few minutes, he checked the door, checked the window, listened. How could this be happening? Had Gloria somehow survived? Was this revenge? Or had something else come back? He remembered the old books she used to read. Life Beyond the Grave, The Waking Dead, Souls That Return. He used to mock her, but now it all felt real. He stayed in that motel for 2 full days. Then, on the 3rd night, just as he started to believe he might be safe, the phone rang. The motel phone. He stared at it, heart pounding. He hadn't told anyone he was there. He picked up slowly. "Hello." Silence. Then the voice, soft, slow, and full of something that sent chills down his back. "Did you miss me, Victor?" He dropped the phone. The line went dead. He turned to the door and saw a shadow pass under it. Long, thin, barefoot. She was here. Victor's breath, caught in his throat as the shadow moved past the bottom of the motel door. It was slow and steady, like someone who knew he was inside. Someone who wasn't in a hurry. Someone who wanted him to be afraid. He backed away, eyes locked on the door, his body pressed to the wall. The room was silent, except for the hum of the motel mini-fridge and his ragged breathing. He didn't dare move, didn't dare speak. Then, knock, knock, knock. The same knock, that same slow, hollow rhythm. The sound that had followed him since that rainy Thursday night. "Victor." The voice came again, just on the other side of the door, soft and broken. "You left me." "No," Victor whispered. "You're not real. This isn't real." But deep down, he knew something was happening. Something beyond his control. He had buried her. He had buried her alive. And whether this was Gloria returned, or something else wearing her voice, it wasn't going to stop. Not now. Bang. The door shook violently, as if someone had slammed their fists against it. Victor jumped, falling to his knees. He scrambled for the lamp and turned it off. Darkness swallowed the room. He crawled under the motel bed like a child hiding from a monster. Then, silence. The knocking stopped. The footsteps faded. He waited there for what felt like an hour, every second stretching endlessly. Eventually, his eyelids grew heavy. Exhaustion took over, and he drifted into a shallow, fearful sleep. When he woke, it was morning. Light poured through the window. The door was still closed, and nothing in the room seemed touched. But when he finally gathered the courage to peek outside, he saw it, written in lipstick across the door. "I still remember." Victor packed his things and left the motel within 5 minutes. He didn't even bother to check out. He drove without a plan, heading away from Redwater, past the state line, and into the countryside. He needed to disappear. He needed distance. Maybe if he ran far enough, whatever this was would stop. He rented a cabin deep in the woods of Arkansas, under a false name again. He told the owner he was a writer looking for peace and quiet. No one knew he was there. He paid in cash. He even left his phone behind. For the first 2 nights, nothing happened. He thought maybe it was finally over. But on the 3rd night, as he lay in bed, something creaked on the wooden porch. Then the front door handle jiggled. And then, clear as day, he heard the voice again, closer than ever. "Victor, why did you watch me suffocate?" He bolted upright, gasping. He checked every lock, every window. Nothing had been broken. No sign of entry. But on the mirror in the bathroom, written in steam like a message from beyond, were the words, "I remember the dirt." Victor collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. He couldn't run anymore. Wherever he went, she followed. Gloria, or whatever was left of her, wasn't just seeking revenge. She wanted him to feel what she had felt. And she wasn't done yet. Victor didn't sleep for the next 3 nights. He didn't eat much either. His face grew pale, his hands always shook, and his eyes were red from crying and fear. He kept all the lights on in the cabin, sometimes even during the day. But the lights couldn't protect him from the whispers in the dark, or from the memories clawing their way back into his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, Gloria's face, pressed against the inside of that cardboard box. Her lips dry, her eyes wide with terror, her fingers bloodied from trying to scratch her way out. He remembered the sound of the dirt hitting the top of the box. He remembered the way the ground had moved ever so slightly as he finished burying her. He had told himself it was just settling, but now he knew better. Now he lived every second in her nightmare. Every mirror in the cabin fogged up on its own. Each time he wiped it clean, more words appeared. I couldn't breathe. You didn't even check. 30 years, and you gave me a box. Victor tried to fight back. He burned the sheets she once sewed. He tossed her old photographs into the fireplace. He even smashed the mirror with his fists, screaming, "Leave me alone." But the next morning, the mirror was whole again, untouched. Victor knew something dark had returned from that grave. He started hearing breathing when he was alone, sometimes behind him, sometimes in the walls. Once, he swore he felt fingers brushing his cheek in the middle of the night. He no longer believed it was just Gloria. No, it was what she had become, a twisted soul full of pain and rage. Something that didn't belong to this world anymore. One night, just before dawn, he heard her speak again, right into his ear. "Let me show you what it felt like." He jolted awake to find himself lying inside something tight. His arms couldn't move. His legs were trapped. It was dark. The air was heavy. Cardboard. He screamed. He clawed at the walls, pushing, kicking, choking on his own breath. Dirt filled his mouth. He was suffocating. Then, suddenly, light. He was back in his cabin, on the floor, gasping, covered in sweat and dust and cuts. The furniture was overturned. His mattress slashed. But he was alive. Barely. He sat in the corner and sobbed for hours. Later that day, Victor found something outside the cabin. Sitting neatly on the porch was a small box. The same kind as before. He opened it. Inside was a mirror, a pair of old knitting needles, and a note in Gloria's handwriting. "You don't deserve to die yet. You need to understand." He collapsed to his knees, holding the note to his chest. He knew what she wanted now. She didn't want him dead. Not yet. She wanted him broken. She wanted him to suffer, to live with what he'd done. And deep inside, Victor knew he deserved it. But the nightmare wasn't over. Not even close. Victor didn't leave the cabin after that. He couldn't. Every step outside felt like walking toward his own grave. His body ached from the stress. He barely ate. His clothes hung loose on his frail frame. And he talked to himself, constantly. "I'm sorry, Gloria. I'm sorry." He whispered over and over again, as if saying it enough would bring peace. But no peace came. Only more reminders. Every morning, there was something new. Dead birds placed on the windowsill. Knitting threads stretched across the door handles. Gloria's wedding ring in his coffee cup. Each message was clear. "I remember. You will too." Victor tried to end it. One night, he took a kitchen knife and stood in front of the mirror. "If this is what you want," he cried, "take me now." But the mirror didn't fog. The voice didn't come. Only silence. That's when he realized. Death was too easy. Gloria wanted him to live. Really live. With the weight of her final moments crushing him every day. And so he stayed, waiting, until one stormy night, nearly 3 months after it all began. There was a sound. Familiar. Inevitable. Knock, knock. Knock. Victor stood still. This time, there was no fear. Just acceptance. He walked to the door slowly, his bones creaking like the floorboards beneath him. He didn't ask who it was. He knew. He opened the door. No one stood there. But something was left on the porch. A shovel. Taped to the handle was a new note. One more thing to dig up. Victor knew exactly what it meant. He drove in silence, the shovel beside him. Back to the land. Back to the grave. Back to where it all started. The weeds were taller now, but the old barn still stood. He walked straight to the spot he had once covered in dirt and lies. He started digging. Hours passed. Deeper. Deeper. Finally, he hit something hard. Wood. But this wasn't the broken cardboard box from before. This was different. This was a coffin. His name carved into the lid. Victor Lawrence. Husband. Betrayer. Burier. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was not a body. Inside was a mirror. A large one, clean and shining despite the dirt around it. And when Victor looked into it, he didn't see himself. He saw Gloria. Alive. Beautiful. Smiling softly. But then, her eyes changed. They filled with tears. Blood ran from her nose. Her lips trembled. She mouthed one word. Why? Victor dropped the mirror, screaming. It shattered into pieces across the dirt. He fell to his knees, sobbing. I was angry. I was stupid. I wanted the money. I didn't think you'd wake up. I didn't know. But there was no forgiveness in the wind. Only one final sound. Knock, knock. Knock. Behind him. Victor turned slowly. There she was. Dirt-covered. Pale. Her wedding dress in tatters. Her fingers scraped raw. Her eyes full of everything he had tried to forget. She didn't speak. She just raised her hand and pointed to the open grave. He nodded. He knew. Victor climbed in. Laid down. She picked up the shovel. And for the first time in months, Victor felt peace. As the dirt rained down, the final knock echoed in his ears. Then, silence.